Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. Today we're talking about practicing silent boundaries. So boundaries, as a reminder, they are not, we don't do them to control someone else, to get a certain outcome, right? Boundaries are a way that we create a framework in our own life of like, this is what is allowed in my life. This is what is okay for me. This is what not okay for me. This is the ways that I want to interact with people and my job and places and whatever, right? So boundaries are about creating this framework that feels healthy and safe and clear for us so that we can then choose things that are a match for us and we can have reciprocal relationship with, right? So boundaries are not, I'm going to do this so that you do this thing, so then I get what I want and my ego is matched, right? If you're setting a boundary to try to control someone, to get them to do or behave in a certain way, then we got to look at that. Okay. So boundaries at the core are a way for you to kind of set the line of this is what I will allow into my life and this is what I won't. And again, it's so you can be very clear around this is what works for me. This isn't what works for me, right? It's not to control other people. And it's very normal when we're going through life that our boundaries ebb and flow and change based on our circumstances, where we are internally with life, based on life transitions, based on what's going on for us, based on what we're trying to work towards, right? So it's very normal for our boundaries to ebb and flow and change. And so when that happens, we have to ebb and flow and change them, right? So we can think about, okay, if I move somewhere new, or if I'm really focusing on my health, then I need to set boundaries around how I spend my time, or where I go, or what my habits are, right? And so when we're doing all that, it can get really easy to get caught up in like, oh, well, what do I do and how do I do this and what's happening? Okay. But when we think about setting our boundaries, it's really important to, again, think about that framework from, is this something that is working for me, that supports me, instead of like, I'm doing this to control someone else. And so when we think about ebbing and flowing and changing our boundaries, a lot of times, if we're going through something and we have this big realization and we're like, oh my God, I'm going to change my whole life right now, right? Then sometimes we can get this mindset of, okay, I need to let the whole world know and say everything, and everyone needs to know, and this and this and this and this and this. And sometimes that's true, right? Sometimes we do have to, we don't want to promote toxicity here, right? So sometimes we do need to let people know about our boundaries, and sometimes we do need to make a post online or send a group text, or, and that's okay. But there is something very valuable in practicing silent boundaries. And so these are boundaries that maybe you don't announce to the whole world. Maybe you don't need to update every single person in your life on every single thing that's happening. Now, obviously, again, we don't want toxicity. And if it directly affects something, some relationship with someone, right, then it's worth turning inward and saying, is this something I need to share? Yes or no? So thinking about, if this is a boundary that I do want to share with people, sometimes it is necessary to say, hey, just from now on, I'm not going to be engaging in this behavior because of this, right? So next time you're with people, or it's something you used to do, right? You stop drinking alcohol, for example, right? Next time you go out with them, they won't pressure you, they won't ask you, they won't whatever, right? You've already set the boundary, you've already made it clear. If you want to say, hey, I'm not available to do this or this thing anymore, or this is something that I'm working on now, or you have a big life change, you choose something different, that's fine and healthy and good to communicate, right? And sometimes when we're really caught up in the cycle of like, well, today I'm doing this and tomorrow I'm doing that, and now everyone needs to know every single second of every single thing, right? It's about turning your inward and asking yourself, like, do I really need to know that? What's my reason behind doing this? What's my reason behind, whatever? And it could be that maybe you realize that there's just a relationship in your life where you just need to not be as available, or you need to show up a little bit more, or I don't know, you take it how it resonates as always. But when you're doing that, just thinking, okay, is this something I need to announce, or can I just kind of move into that energy and practice the changing of my silent boundary? And sometimes people think a boundary is like, no, this is what I'm not doing, but a boundary can also be things that you let in and things that you do differently, right? So if you're going to choose to, you decide, okay, I'm going to give people in my life more compliments, I'm going to affirm things that they do for me more intentionally with that. Maybe you don't need to announce that to everyone. You can, maybe, okay, but maybe you don't need to. And if you don't need to, you can just start doing it, right? Maybe you don't need to tell the whole world that, okay, I'm starting this new fitness routine, whatever. Maybe you do because you want accountability, or you want to share it with a fitness group you have, or whatever, right? But you don't really, it's about thinking, do I need to announce this? Who, in general, who do I need to share it with? And what's the point of me doing that? Sometimes it can be really good to share with someone and just get affirmed of like, wow, that's really great. I'm so proud of you. Here we go. Sometimes we do it because we're looking for that validation, or we're looking for this other piece from it, right? And so, or like, hey, I really got into this thing, right? And so it's really about turning inward and saying like, is this feel authentic for me to share from my heart? Is it valuable? Is it important? Or am I just doing it because I feel like I need to? It's a habit I had. Maybe I have a habit of oversharing or people pleasing or getting my worth from, whatever. And so when we practice silent boundaries, it's just, you just do it, right? You just decide this is the thing I'm doing, and I just want to embody that energy and do it differently. Obviously, again, support is amazing. Being too independent is not what we're going for here either, but really thinking about, how much do I need to be sharing with everyone about every single thing in my life? Am I going to change how I show up in this relationship? And am I going to work on being less reactive to things, right? Am I going to work on not taking the bait every single time I get, reminded of a situation where I need to stand up for myself and I need to say this? Like, what if I just decide to stop responding to every single thing in my life, right? So if finding that gray area for you of, okay, these are things that I'm going to shift and change and do a little bit differently, right? And again, with all of that, it's turning inward and saying for myself, going in between that, how much do I want to share with who, why, what's the point of this? Okay. Sometimes boundaries, when we're changing these, when we're practicing silent boundaries, if you've never done that before, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel different. It's going to feel like, what is this? I don't like it, maybe, right? And it doesn't mean it's the wrong thing for you. It just means maybe you've never practiced it before. It could just mean that something that is not the most again, the most practice for you, you don't have the most experience with it. It doesn't feel familiar. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just when we do something different that we've never done before, it can feel disorienting and like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. But again, that's just because we haven't practiced it before. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean you chose wrong. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means this is something in my life that I haven't done before, I haven't worked on. And so when we're practicing these silent boundaries, it could just be, again, I'm going to choose not to respond when someone says something that I get so mad about and I just get so engaged into whatever. It's like, do I really need to engage with that, right? If a stranger says something to me, or I see something online, or whatever, it's like, okay, do I need to announce to the whole world that I'm not going to do that behavior? Or am I just going to not do that and then just share with maybe like my counselor or my close friends, or, maybe your higher power, right? What that looks like for you. And so just remembering that silent boundaries, that's about the relationship between you and you. And that's about affirming for yourself of like, this is what feels good for me. This is what I'm going to choose to share or not share. This is what feels resonant for me to do moving forward. And so this doesn't mean that you stop having boundaries. It doesn't mean that you stop communicating boundaries when necessary. It just means that this is another example of a way for us to be accountable with ourselves, to feel clear and confident in what we're doing, just maybe not in that way where we need to announce every single thing all the time, right? As the saying goes, talk is cheap. Okay, so if people get used to you announcing all these things and doing all these things, but you don't actually change your behavior, right? The behavior change is what's important and can kind of symbolize to us the work that we're doing and make us see changes in our lives and all of that, right? So, and again, not saying that you shouldn't announce when it applies and when it helps, but it's important to know that having the silent boundaries, focusing on changing your behavior, not announcing every single thing, like, again, who is this for? What's the point of it? Is it necessary? Can I just change my boundary and my behavior and go along with my life with that? And say, really working on that internal affirming, and with your close circle versus like the whole world. Again, there are times where sharing with a lot of people does feel good. Making a post to all your social media, everything feels good, right? Sending a mass text out does feel good, feels necessary. But just really thinking about, is this a time that I want to work on changing my behavior and practicing a silent boundary and then sharing with the world, or do I want to go the other way around? Right? So just, again, as always, you know yourself better than I do. You know what works for you, but sometimes this is really important for us to think about, especially if you're someone who grew up like in enmeshed relationships, not a lot of healthy understanding of What do I need to share? What do I not need to share? What can I keep private? What can I, whatever. And just really thinking about, which things are important for me to share and which things aren't. Then the other side of that, of course, is if you are someone who doesn't speak up for yourself, doesn't state your boundaries, then this video might not be for you. You can focus on that. But again, there's just finding this area of, okay, is this something I need to share with someone, or can I just actually practice doing this and then like embody that energy and see the change in my life from there? Okay, that's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. If you ever want any more information about me, all that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.